Hello, and welcome to my series of conversations with men and women whose ideas, vision, and philosophy define our contemporary world. My guest today is one of India's most distinguished writers and authors. She's been awarded the Sahitya Akademi Award, the Jnanpith Award, and has been globally recognized and applauded for the passion and the integrity of her writing. Indira Goswami. She has been Assam's window to India, India's window to Assam, in fact, the world's window to Assam and Assam's window to the world. I'm delighted to welcome you, Indira ji.
Thank you very much.
You have written with so much passion about so many different parts of India, bringing to it, in a sense, an Assamese sensibility. It's quite unusual, in a sense, for someone writing in a regional language. It's been a unique contribution to present India to the Assamese in their own language. How have you been able to go and pick up the texture of such a varied landscape, from Vrindavan to Kashmir to construction workers working on roadsides? What is the secret of this sensibility?
Well, I was very lucky to be, I visited all these places, you know. I was in Kashmir in 1966. After my marriage, I went there. My husband was a civil engineer constructing bridges. I stayed with the workers in the barracks, and I learned a lot from them, their life. And so, you know, it is an entirely unique experience for me. I wrote my first novel, The Current of Sinab, with that experience. Unfortunately, my husband was killed in an accident there, but still I continued. I went to Ahiran, Madhya Pradesh. I wrote my novel on the workers of Ahiran Aqueduct. They were, you know, they were migratory labor, mostly migratory laborers, when there were no union among them. And you can imagine, when there were no union in the private companies, you can imagine the condition of the workers. When my husband died in the, you know, while in duty, his compensation was only 10,000 rupees. He was a civil engineer, full-fledged, and you can imagine the condition of the laborers.
In a sense, the strands in your novels and in your writing have been widowhood. You became a widow very, very young, in a sense, and so you have been looking, at widowhood in different social contexts across the landscape of India. Is there an India that emerges from this different experiences? Is widowhood different in Vrindavan to Madhya Pradesh or to Assam in some ways?
Well, they kind of, you can point out the similarities also, but I saw the agonies almost same everywhere. You know, when I was in Vrindavan, these widows used to come from East, at that time it was East Pakistan. When I stayed there in 1970, they used to come from those places in East Pakistan without any valid documents, and mostly from the place like Rajshahi, and then Bakura from West Bengal. And I personally used to feel that they were thrown out from the family, and because of the financial, state, they had to come. And staying with them, I could find the difficulty which they have faced, and there are so many. I have described in detail, and in South Kamrup, I have written about the widows of South Kamrup in my novel Widowhood Howdah, the Moth Eaten Howdah of a Tusker.
But what sort of distinguishes that, your novels and your writing, in some ways, is that beyond the sort of the physical description, which is very powerful, of course, of of widowhood, that people are disowned, of being on one's own and no money and what have you, is the intense emotional process, is the intense emotional agony of of aloneness, of solitude, of abandonment. So what is, from your own experience of widowhood, what is the most difficult part of being left widowed?
Well, if you have a strength, you can live very thinly. And I had so many friends. Friends stayed with me. Then I'm always studying, and I have. You should always have a hobby or a kind of attachment towards something which. But many, people are different. The widows are different. Many are uneducated, illiterate. They suffer. But then, I feel that they wanted to find out a kind of path through which they can think of. They go to Vrindavan, then here and there, and so I found more agony among them. Those who could not, recline to some kind of hobbies or sadhana.
So would you say, you just mentioned sadhana, and that's what I was coming to, would you say then that this intense suffering that takes people to Vrindavan is seeking spirituality in some ways to explain and understand their predicament? And what has been the consolation that spirituality has brought to you?
Well, it is great. I cannot imagine of my life without spirituality. I remember Radhakrishnan, and he used to say that if you become scientifically skilled and do not develop the other dimension of your soul, and do not believe that besides knowledge there are other words like wisdom, you will become a monster, not the master of your life. Anyway, spirituality is not a religion. To me, it is a humanity, part of humanity. It should be with you. Otherwise, I cannot imagine a person without having kind of spiritual, kind of a spiritual flavor in him.
What was this aspect of spirituality or the quest or religion or the metaphysical that when you were in Vrindavan, you spent more than a year living with a snake?
That is in the temple.
And snake is a very potent symbol in Indian mythology and spirituality. So obviously something was going on there. What was going on?
Well, I'm a great lover of animals. I'm strictly vegetarian. And I wrote a novel called Chinnamasta, and it is about prohibition of the buffalo sacrifice or animal sacrifice, which is still going on in Kamakhya temple. It created quite a lot of uproar. For 2000 years, nobody dared to write a novel, nobody dared to write against animal sacrifice of Kamakhya temple. I think Kamakhya is the greatest Shakti Pit in India. And but I was so, if you have gone through my autobiography, you will find how I used to, run away from the, place of sacrifice, and then how I used to take shelter in Christ while reading Bible, and that something, when I was very small, I gradually learned about Hinduism and the Ramayanas, which I did my PhD anyway. But then, because my intense thing for animal, I feel that it is a manifestation of the spirituality which is, always working in me.
We'll come right back to that in a moment, spirituality, animals and snakes. You're watching a conversation with Dr. Indira Goswami. We'll be right back after a short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to a continuing conversation with the Assamese writer Indira Goswami. This is fascinating. You spend a year and a half with the snake, and this for you is an expression of your love for animals. You're also, obviously, it's apparent from your
I never used to
physiognomy.
feel afraid of snakes. You are, for snake also, I don't know why I have kind of sympathy.
Is that a part of, you mentioned spirituality, and apart from spirituality, you also use the word sadhana. So is there a spiritual sadhana that you have, a specific practice? You have often written about the the intense suffering and the many tragedies in your life, and how that these have helped you, apart from writing, to cope and to carry on and to transcend it. So what is this? What is the nature of this sadhana?
Sadhana, actually, it is a kind of, when I was a very young girl, my father used to ask me to sit 2 hours and study, and gradually you go on increasing. And when I started writing my novels and all, my father used to say that you go on sitting for 4 or 5 hours. You must love the subject, and that is sadhana, and you can go on increasing while the sadhana while writing. So you will be surprised to know, but now in this age I can sit for 12 hours, 13 hours at a stress and write, and it is very difficult to say that whether it is a cultivation, because love for the subject is always with it, and I think it has to be a kind of cultivation and with love for the
So that is the sadhana, in a sense, of your craft, which is also an expression of your being. But I'm sort of more interested in the internal sadhana, the sadhana that shapes your mind, that shapes your...
Because my, writing itself things up in my mind. It is a kind of, I cannot define you. It is always there. And sadhana, how can you define it?
I mean, is there sort of like a ritual? You do a yoga, do you do a prayer?
Yes, it is a kind of a ritual. It is I cannot, even if for one day if I leave my sadhana, I feel restless. And so definitely it is a kind of yoga. My gurus used to say that yes, even writing is a yoga. If you love it and if you go on doing it throughout, it is a yoga. That's what people used to say, and I feel it is.
So I noticed that you're wearing a number of rings
on
your finger.
My mother has given me.
Is there an astrological significance to these?
Well, she used to say that this is for this, and my horoscope was not that satisfactory for her. But I'm very happy with my horoscope because I can write freely, I can think up, and nothing is wrong. But
so do you feel
that
the great sort of the journey of your life, the intense, the intense sense of suffering and the overcoming of suffering that your writing encompasses, has been sort of the reason why you're such a great writer? Is suffering necessary to be a great writer?
I think it is inevitable. Suffering is inevitable. You know more of human being. You know more of world. Without suffering, I personally feel that one cannot be a very successful writer. I don't know, there may be some, but for me, suffering is inevitable for a successful, a great writer. I'm not a great writer, but then I feel that for a great writer, it is inevitable.
So does the process of writing then work to understanding your suffering, overcoming it, resolving it? What is the relationship? It's obviously the material of your writing, but how does it, when I meet you, you're full of laughter, you're full of joy, despite, as you have described, a life of suffering, and we'll come to the life of suffering in a minute. But in what ways is writing an instrument to transcend it? Is it catharsis? Is it bringing order? Is it understanding?
No, because while you love the subject, you forget everything.
So you love suffering? That's the subject of much of your writing?
Even in my writing, the suffering widows, the way they suffered, the opium eaters of South Kamrup, how they suffered, sharecroppers when they were thrown out from their land, how they suffered. While writing, I feel I am with the suffering of those people, and so it always makes me forget everything.
Forget your own suffering?
My own suffering totally I forget.
What has been the most intense suffering in your own life?
Intense suffering?
The most. I mean, you've lost your husband, you had difficulty with relationships. What has been the most difficult part of your own life?
Well, my family members are very cooperative. Always, they are so, I think, but then my husband was a very, he was a saintly type of man, and when I lost him, I really suffered terribly. I didn't know that I will come out of that suffering. Then I lost my friend Kaikaus Barjur. He's a Parsi gentleman. He stayed with us for so many years, and in his death also, made me very, totally, I was devastated. And then my brother, young brother, many death has made me suffer very intensely. And but then I became more wise and more, detached. And I think it brought some kind of gravity towards my writing also. And then I have come to know more of life, that human life is like this, and whatever I have, we have to, think it. We should spend it happily, and I try to do so.
We'll come back to a very interesting new dimension of your life, that of writer as activist. We'll be right back after a short break. You're watching a conversation with Dr. Indira Goswami. Don't go away. Welcome back to a continuing conversation with Indira Goswami, the very distinguished Assamese writer. Assamese writer because you write in Assamese, but in a sense you're an Indian writer. You've touched upon so many aspects. And I started this program by talking about how you were sort of offering the Assamese a window to India and India a window to Assam. And in your incarnation as writer, as activist, you're now engaged in facilitating a peace process, a peace dialogue between the government of India and ULFA. How did that happen, and how does a woman writer in Assam find herself in this role?
Well, it is naturally it came, and I knew this revolutionary youth for quite a long time. Now 12 years ago, I wanted to write a book in the beginning, but beginning I was not that keen. But whenever I go to Guwahati, these students used to come and take me to various places for lectures. And once 12 years ago, once they took me somewhere and telling me that it is a lecture on this subject, and I found that it is something else.
You were at an ULFA training camp.
Something else, and they told me that, do you like to see the entire camp? I said, yes, I would love to see. I saw that at that time they are doing many welfare jobs, constructing roads, making people aware of government grants. Then they are helping the flood affected people. I think you know about the flood. And in that way they were doing quite a lot of work, and I was very much charmed by them at that time. And then what happened, that was a great experience so many years ago. And the way I went to their camp when the army operation was taking place in Darang district of Assam, that night how I came back with them when the military trucks were almost seizing. It was really, I cannot describe you how.
So as the sort of the interlocutor between the two, sort of, the government of India and the ULFA, and there is a great sense of great sensitivity now about the potential alienation of people from the Northeast. What do you think is the real source of the conflict?
Well, from the very beginning, the thought of alienation was very, very strong among Assamese people. They find it that they were neglected. I must tell you, there are many points where it is so genuine. In the history books all over India, we grew up with the knowledge of, say, various civilizations like Marathas, Vijayanagar kingdom, Portuguese connection, and so many things. But the Ahoms who ruled Assam for 600 years, and during their time their culture prospered like anything. There is no mention of anything in any book, any Indian book or any way, why this thing has happened. Then chronicle writings. You know, Sir George Grierson has written very well, very distinctly in his linguistic survey that Assamese are justly proud of their national literature. This is chronicles. And at that time, no other languages were not flourishing in this, particular in chronicle writing. There is no mention from 13th century onward. This chronicle writings are going on, and then there's a different department in Ahom kingdom about chronicle writing.
So there is this sense of neglect that people in India don't feel that Assam is emotionally, intellectually integrated. That's the perception in Assam. At this time, and apart from the specifics, which I won't sort of draw you into because you're sworn to secrecy in terms of the dialogue between the government of India and ULFA, what are the kinds of things that you feel that India can do and the Assamese might do to bring about long-term rapprochement?
Yes, that's what I'm trying so much, as a writer. While writing the book on alphas, while I'm trying, I found that unofficial reports said about 10,000 each were killed and about 30,000 wounded. It's an unofficial report. I found that gradually a best part of our society are coming to an end, and every day the encounters are going on now. The air bomb blast is going on. So I thought that there should be a peace process, and since our Honorable Prime Minister Manmohan Singh also worked with us in Delhi University, and he is a nobleman, I know, and I thought that definitely he will hear our appeal. I had that courage with me, and so I took the appeal, and then he went through, and he said, in my tenure I am going to do something. I was very happy. And
so what would you like them to do?
Well, they should come to a table.
Okay.
They should come to table, they should discuss, they should, there should be discussion on their core issue. Maybe it is sovereignty or it is a core issue, so they should discuss about it, find out the solutions. In that way, definitely something will come, I feel, because 27 years nobody has listened to them, and they have not come for discussion in the table, and nobody even tried so honestly. Probably they wanted to try, probably, but then also, so as I did. For last nearly 1 year it will be. And
tell me, you write.
But then one thing you must remember, that I am not a mediator. I just wanted to bring them to table, and I want that there should be other people also to help them in their.
In the context of this interface between your Assamese sensibility and the Indian sensibility, what is unique is that distinguishes the Assamese sensibility? What do you feel is the most Assamese part of you?
Well, I feel that these Ahoms who ruled Assam for so many years, they had a kind of system where there is no caste system. You will not find dowry in Assam. When you go through the Ramayana, which was written in 14th century, it was the first Ramayana written in modern Indo-Aryan language, you will find the women, they had a political power also. So and they were not tortured by any ruling class the way some parts of India has been. It happened in some part of India.
So would you describe yourself as an Assamese feminist?
Absolutely, I'm not a feminist at all. I'm a humanist. And Assamese, I have some kind of, definitely I am Assamese, but then feminist is I cannot think of.
Okay, you know, sort of your autobiography is called sort of an unfinished autobiography, and you've just, you know, you're in the process of publishing a second volume. And in a sense, every autobiography has to be unfinished because, you know.
Of course, nobody can complete there.
But if someone were to complete or want to complete your unfinished autobiography or the last volume of the unfinished autobiography, what kind of epitaph, what would you want them to say about you? What would you want to be remembered as?
Remembered?
Yes, what would be the conclusion that you would like written about this?
They should remember me as that here lies a humanist, a real humanist. And I'm, yes, that only I want, nothing else. That is the only word I want for me.
Rajiv, thank you very much. This has been a great privilege.
Thank you very much.
You.